Hello, and welcome to POMA Does, a podcast produced by the Pennsylvania Osteopathic Medical Association. We provide a voice for osteopathic medicine and share insights on issues important to osteopathic physicians, residents, and students, as well as those who embrace the osteopathic philosophy. POMA's mission is to promote the distinctive philosophy and practice of osteopathic medicine for our patients, our members, and the communities we serve. Thanks for tuning in.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the POMA Does podcast series, sponsored by the Pennsylvania Osteopathic Medical Association. I'm Dr. Peter Biddy. I'm a family physician and I went to PCOM. I'm the class of 2008. I now work for PCOM and I recently assumed a new role as dean. And today I have the privilege of talking with the leaders of Pennsylvania's 3 College of Osteopathic Medicine. If okay with the group, I'd sure like to start by asking everybody to introduce yourselves. And Dr. Freddie, you're to the left of my screen. Would you mind going first?
My name is Dr. Sylvia Ferretti, the founding dean of LECOM, now 31 years. I went to PCOM. I'm a graduate, and I'm a specialist in physical medicine and rehabilitation.
Dr. Kaufman, I have you next in my kind of circle area. Would you mind going next as an introduction?
Sure. I'm John Kaufman. I'm the founding dean of the Duquesne University College of Osteopathic Medicine. I'm a 1986 graduate of PCOM. Did my osteopathic internship in Clarion and my internal medicine residency at Lehigh Valley.
It's so nice to see you as well. My alma mater is Duquesne from college, so I've got both PCOM and Duquesne together. And then, Dr. Veit, you're the last in my circle. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm Ken Veit. I graduated from PCOM in 1976. Spent my early years in the United States Public Health Service, National Health Service Corps in central Pennsylvania. Came back to the school, and I've been employed by the school in various positions since 1982. That gives me about 42 years at the school. And from 1992 to 2022, I function as a dean, and I'm currently the provost of this university.
Thank you. And it's so great to have all of you here. I think one of the goals of this meeting was to kind of show the public what we kind of do at osteopathic medical schools and kind of those roles as deans and as administrators. I'm also taking this secretly as probably the newest kid to this block of I'm going to try to steal every morsel from what you say and into my brain to make sure that I can hopefully, try to be as good as you all have been at what you're doing. So kind of the first question I would pose to the group would be maybe just to the general public. Overall, what do you feel your role as the dean of your school is, whether it's interacting with alumni, students, that whole gauntlet of everything you do on a day-to-day basis?
I'll start with, what does a dean do? A dean is somebody who actually looks over the academic program, and above them is the president and the board, who institutionally are guiding, the mission in your value system. Who are directly responsible to are the faculty and the students. So some people call the dean spot a sandwich position, where we're looking at the mission, we're looking at the value system, yet the most important thing are the human resources that teach and the students and their outcomes, because they need another step in the continuum, their residency. So it's an encompassing position, and Dr. Veit's been there and Dr. Kaufman's been there. Maybe they want to add to that.
Well, I'll make a few comments. First of all, it's a fantastic position. It's a joy to have the honor of being a dean of an osteopathic college. It is a get-along position, as Sylvia said, where you do have bosses. Everybody has a boss. The board of trustees, of course. I do believe that the dean has various roles to play depending on what's happening at the school at any particular time. So sometimes you're a certain dean because that's what your institution needs, and then you have to shift to be a different dean as the institution changes and shifts. The flexibility that you need to read those dynamic shifts in your institution and lead them at the same time, recognizing that the dean you are 30 years ago is not the dean you are today because of the changing dynamics of the school. And therefore, the flexibility that you have to bring to the table is recognizing change as part of the game. And so I think that's what I can add to the discussion. It's just the flexibility you need as a dean to be a long-term dean. And also, so you said, you have to deal with hierarchy, board of trustees, presidents. I've lived with, 5 presidents during my deanship, and every president brings their own personality, their own vision to the school, their own method of being a president. And if you wish to continue to participate, you have to adapt. You have to adapt to their leadership styles and still keep focused on the mission, and that is the academic program and making sure that our graduates are the top graduates in the world as they leave our school and go into the second half of their education, which is graduate medical education.
Thank you.
John?
Yes, so I can add the perspective of a dean starting a new med school. And I know, Sylvia, you've done that in the past as well. But today, it really involves starting out building a mission statement and assembling a team. We're starting with half classes now, and that creates its own set of economic challenges. And so you've got to build a team and build the curriculum. And I agree with Dr. Veit. It's, I think, the best job in the world. It's exciting every day, brings some new challenge. But for me, it's tapping into the energy of folks who want to come and be part of a new school starting. And that includes the faculty, staff, and the students. And I think it's a lot of fun. One of the things that we tell ourselves is starting a new medical school is not the time to reinvent medical education. And it's important to build a school that is recognizable to the COCA and the site visitors that have got to come and approve your school. But yes, it's been a privilege and it's fun every day.
Thank you all so much. I love my job, and I've only been doing it for a couple months, but so far it's been so amazing, and it's so nice to hear that from people that have been doing this for so much longer than me. Obviously, we talk about the fun, and we talk about the administrative side, kind of that sandwich, as Dr. Freddie said, in between where you're going and things like that. Just one of those thoughts is, when you're dealing with that, does anybody still have the opportunity to do some teaching, seeing some patients, doing research? Does that factor into your day, your week, your year at all? Just because I think when people think of the dean, they think they're just doing these things. And sometimes people have some other interests that they're kind of having to pursue for their college and for their comms as a whole.
Well, when I started, I was in full-time practice. However, the accrediting body will not let you practice full-time. You can do maybe 8 to 10 hours. So I did clinical days for a long time, haven't done it in a while. My specialty is physical medicine and rehabilitation. So I guess my expertise, what I feel comfortable in, is osteopathic manipulative medicine and or anatomy. So you'll see me when they need a substitute or if I do rehab lectures in the curriculum. But you don't see us as much in teaching. I think the way a dean teaches is the way they lead, how they're there every day, what the students see, their interaction with them. So I don't know, Dr. Veit's been around a long time and he's been an example to the students. I hope I have been, of how they should live their life, what can be done with their life. So I hope we're teaching by role modeling and the way we lead. And sometimes our students who become deans tell us that's what they looked at. I will say for Dr. Veit, for him, he did start schools. He didn't start the original PCOM. He's not old enough. But he did start schools, right, Ken?
Thank you, Sylvia. I'm still young at heart.
You're not old enough.
I'm not old enough. 25 years of PCO. No, I was not here at the beginning. But it's interesting, the 125 years of a legacy school versus the new startups and the maturing new schools. They're all somewhat different in challenges in some parts. But your question, Pete, I think is a great question. I've been really fortunate. Throughout my 30 years as the dean of PCOM, I've been able to continuously do a clinical session in our Department of Family Medicine because of our clinic environment. And these are teaching clinical environments. Now, not every dean can do that. If you're a surgical dean, procedural dean, you just don't have the infrastructure in place. But it's been really probably one of my salvations through that 30 years is to every Wednesday morning have the opportunity of putting on the white coat, going into our centers. I have patients that have been with me 40 plus years and meet a student cohort that I wouldn't meet just as dean. And I have that benefit. And I've said this to many people. When you're the dean's job, your student relationships sometimes get biased to the politicians who are always in your face or the students who have some struggles. But that's not our school. The school is in the middle, the mean students who keep their nose to the grindstone, do everything right, And that's the school. And when I do the clinical work, not only do I try to role model patient care activity and teaching in that clinical environment, I get to meet students one-on-one who come from the middle and not from the extremes. And I've been very fortunate because I could not have done that if I was anything other than a family doctor. So I'll end there. John.
Yeah, I've been a dean now for 12 years. And at my last school, we would do mission trips 4 times a year. And I would go on those and see patients with the students. And I always felt like that group of students I knew better than the rest of the class. And we'll do the same thing here at Duquesne.
Excellent. Thank you all. I hearken back to what Dr. Ferretti said about, learning from your dean and the role modeling, because I'm lucky enough that I too get to work in the healthcare centers with Dr. Veit. I'm on Thursdays though for my 4 hours, but I've always heard him say it's probably one of the highlights of his week. And even though I've been in the role for a few months, I've really taken that to heart because it's a different mindset. It's like a whole different interaction, and I truly love it as well. So one of the other questions that I was kind of thinking about, and that maybe it's sometimes I really enjoy history and kind of the process of how things have happened. One of the things I think the public would like to know is, what was your path to becoming a dean? Was it you woke up and you're like, this is where I'm going to be, or did you just kind of evolve into these roles? So I'd love to hear from the group some of your journey story to where you are today.
I never thought about being the dean, so I don't know if there's a dean school or there's a path to it. I think it's different now. But what happened was actually I was at PCOM, came back to Erie. The thought of the new school, this teen school, which was really the Renaissance change in the profession. They said because I had medical school, I guess, department and PM&R, and then I worked at Penn with the residents there. So that's how they begin to give you more duties. And in our case, we wrote the original document. For me, there was no dean school. And I think that something in my career, I'm sure you'll hear this from every dean, every physician. I think, Peter, you were probably like that too, is when people ask you to do something, you usually say yes, and you don't know where it's going to take you. So when you say yes, then you participate. And in that activity and participation, there may be another step and another step. And that's actually how I got here. So my answer to is where you get there is you say yes and you participate. And then I guess in my case, then they asked you to be dean.
We'll change the ship. We'll let John go next.
Sure. Well, my goal was to be a simple country doctor, but I was in Allentown, PA, and my mentor, Joe Stella, had asked me to assume the position of Director of Medical Education at Allentown Osteopathic. And I thought I was just going to be doing it for a short while, but I found that I loved every aspect of it. I liked building the curriculum, lecturing, recruiting, building residency programs. And that really put me on a path of first leading and building. And then when I got recruited to the UME part, and then got the opportunity to build the school at Campbell. So yeah, no formal training. I think students have many more opportunities for masters in medical education, leadership programs. ACOM has one. So I think it's a very different path, but I would say I sort of fell into it, but enjoyed all the aspects and realized that I was better suited for academics.
Yeah, Sylvia said there's no dean school. If you ask my classmates from the class of 1976 who would be least likely to be a dean, the answer would be almost universally Ken Veit. There was absolutely nothing in my background that indicated I wanted to be a dean or desired to be a dean. And my classmates still scratched their head as saying, how did you follow this path? It's more like, as Sylvia said, when you have the opportunity and you don't say no, they give you more and more. When I first got to PCOM, I was a frontline clinician in the healthcare centers covering doctors' sessions and just doing whatever they asked. They saw that I had a little bent for administration, so they fired the administrator and made me the medical director. Didn't pay me anymore. And that's the other thing. You don't ask for money every time they ask you to do something, because that's a killer right there. You basically take the next responsibility. And again, where the institution is at the time really also gives you the opportunity, because I've known deans who are well qualified, just never hit the right opportunity at it's timing. PCOM was going through some hard financial issues back when running a hospital, et cetera, in the city of Philadelphia, I bugged the president at the time, Pete Tilley, to let me get my MBA. Let me get my MBA, because I really felt that a physician with a business language skill set would be helpful. And I think as I went through as a young man to be selected as a dean, I think that differentiated me, because at the time the institution was struggling financially, and it gave me just a little bit of an edge over other people who did not have that degree. We can talk about the pluses and minuses of various advanced degrees, but I guess the issue is there's no way to prepare. A lot of times it's just opportunistic, being at the right place at the right time. And also, as Sylvia said, being known as a person who can get along, but also will do whatever needs to be done without a whole lot of aggravation.
And I'll add, we love our profession. The T on this screen, we love osteopathic medicine and wanted to see it grow and be the best it can be.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think Dr. Veit, my classmates would say the same about me. They're often surprised that I'm in a role. And I agree 100% with Dr. Ferretti and Dr. Kaufman of the opportunity. I have a fear of missing out. So I say yes to many things when people ask me to do them. But my only thing would be, I think too, and I hearken to what Dr. Kaufman said, there's always usually some mentors involved that kind of just steer you on one little path of like, hey, why don't you think about doing that, and then kind of see where you're going. So I think it harkens back to just the love of the profession and that instilling it in the future to also bring them along so that you're, creating that legacy. So the next question that was on the list that's probably a little bit deeper, so sorry to make your brains churn a little bit more. We've talked about how this evolves over the years. So how have things kind of changed since you started as a dean? And where do you think that they're going in this continuum of medical education in this ever-changing world that is osteopathic medicine?
I'm going to let Dr. Veit start that one.
Oh, geez. Thank you, Sylvia.
I thought you're the oldest.
Well, not by much.
I know that.
Not
You still are the oldest.
I know, not by much, Sylvia. Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, it's a different world, and every year is a different world. Your environment keeps shifting. When I started off, it was a single campus, a single program at a single university, and certainly that had its unique challenges, but again, it was a different animal. So therefore, the structure of these schools that morph into universities and multi-healthcare institutions changes once you make the decision, or the Board of Trustees makes the decision for you to branch into other campuses geographically. It adds an incredible amount of challenge to your job dealing with it. So your job changes from the structural internal environment and the external environment. When we went to school, Sylvia and I, sure John too, there was osteopathic hospitals all over the state of Pennsylvania, right? And basically these osteopathic hospitals had a history and a commitment to osteopathic education. Well, we all know in the 1980s, DRGs came along. The osteopathic accredited hospitals, for the most part, could not make the leap and either merged, closed, or got assimilated into bigger systems and larger systems. And the connectivity at the hospital level to the osteopathic profession was not the same as it was when we went to school. So therefore, you're now knocking on partnership doors that really do not have necessarily the same osteopathicisms that we knew back when I started, because every osteopathic hospital was dedicated to the training of osteopathic students. And it was part of their mission. And that mission doesn't necessarily exist in the same way it did 30 years ago. So the structure changes, internal, external, and then the students are always going to be different. The student body that we see now are a reflection of the generation that we deal with. I've heard a lot of my old faculty members kick and moan about they don't work as hard, blah, blah, blah. No, they're the only students we have. We've all heard that, right? And so you have to keep fighting that trend of looking backwards, because indeed, these are the students we have today. We have to learn how to deal with them. We have to learn how to adapt. I think those are the changes I've seen: structural, internal structure, external structure, and then certainly the student body that we're recruiting now.
I took approach from my rehab background and looked at how they learn. So we developed problem-based learning. Many schools have that, or case-based. We have to, COVID put us in an environment of online. That was an external factor that I think changed delivery of osteopathic medicine. And we all were challenged. I'm sure Dr. Veit was, how do we give them the hands-on approach, right? In physical diagnosis and manipulation in COVID. How do we stay alive during that? So the external factors, I think everybody listening, everybody on this knows that COVID alone has changed the educational process. That'll never go back. And I'll use me as an example. You would never saw me on Zoom. I would have never used it. So I like what Dr. Veit said. We have to adapt. We have to adapt to the learner. We have to adapt to the environment. Things that when they merged and had the one pathway in graduate medical education, it was a huge change for us because our students can't practice without graduate medical education, yet we really don't have control, in a sense, of that part of our continuum. We participated in it. The external environment changes, the student changes, and the expectation of the public, I believe, has changed. I will say, though, that osteopathic medicine has stand the test of time, body, mind, and spirit. And at least what the patient wants now is more of what we offer. Would you agree?
Absolutely, I agree. I think we are really at the dawn of a new time in medicine. And if we continue to hang on to the stuff that that has been there from the beginning, our holistic health, wellness, prevention focus, I believe we can certainly own primary care moving into the future more than we do now.
I think so. You hit, Mark, the resiliency of our profession actually shows the rightness of our profession. Philosophical basis that we know and love attracts a student body that hopefully buys that philosophy. And then we have been resilient over the years. I remember when City Avenue Hospital died and how many alumni came up to me and said, I guess the school's dead now. You guys are going to be finished because the hospital closed or changed hands and then ultimately closed. And of course, we had to adapt. We had to knock on other doors and other partnerships had to develop. So I think that over the years, the profession has had to adapt. And I think that the resiliency we have shown as a profession actually endorses the correctness of what we're teaching and how we're teaching it and the type of students we bring in and the type of graduates that we produce, which I think, although it's tough to put hard numbers and hard quantification to it, patients know the difference. Patients see the difference. They feel the difference. And it's tough to define that to the public at large. But I truly, after my years of doing this, when a patient goes to one of our graduates, they say, wow, they touched me, they talked to me, they communicated with me. And so something magical happens in our culture to create a provider that is differentiated by the patient. And it has nothing to do necessarily with the amount of clinical skills they have, but it's how they approach those clinical skills. And that's the magic. And where that magic happens, I can make arguments that happens here or there, but it does happen. And that's what gives me incredible pride of our graduates, because they are differentiated by the patient. When they go into a group practice and there's one DO and there's all MDs, which is more and more the delivery system of the United States, I always come back and said, yeah, I went to his partner or her partner for a while. Then I got the DO and somehow there was a little bit of difference. And that's the special sauce we hear. There is a special sauce, and it's a tribute to every one of our graduates. And keep doing what you're doing out there because it does make a difference.
I think that's actually a good segue to the final question so everybody could have a little bit of a breather. But, education has changed. The way we work has changed and the way that we teach has changed. So obviously, as physicians, we work, within healthcare teams with other health professionals. Even our schools expand and have those other colleges within. How does that happen at a school level? How are we kind of showing that interprofessional education, that work within the teams and the healthcare professionals at the undergraduate medical education level?
Well, we have multiple schools. So our faculty are intertwined, pharmacy, medicine. Our students have interprofessional activities that they work together with, both on the clinical side and now in the undergraduate side. I think that the students themselves work in teams when they come to class because of different ways that they learn, like in problem-based learning. Our faculty and staff work in cross teams. I think everybody accepted that everybody has a worth in a team. They bring a knowledge base for success, and everything is within systems. So to be honest with you, my pharmacy, we have a dental clinic here. Our pharmacy students and medical students are in the dental clinics. The dental patients come from some of our nursing homes. So the whole team is there when those patients are seen. And I know at everybody's campus, it's going to be similar. I think all of us believe, because we practice that way, that the students need to learn that way. I know you have different schools, right, Ken?
Certainly, there's advantages when you have different schools in-house to take advantage of those interconnectivities. I do believe that IPE, when push comes to shove, and if there's any stickiness to it, the student ultimately has to see it in action with the patient. And I think Sylvia gave an example of a patient, dental patient. Doesn't matter whether it's a dental patient or a PT patient or other, but when the students actually are able to participate in IPE, interprofessional interaction with a real patient, there's much more stickiness. That's sometimes difficult to achieve. I can just use an example because of our primary care delivery system. The old healthcare centers or booth doctors, as many alumni remember, we have our behavioral health students in there, we have our pharmacy students in there, and the magic that I see is when I send a DO student and a pharmacy student and a behavioral health student in to see one of the more complex patients, and how those three entities work together to try to help the patient in the room, and it's just magical when you have that kind of opportunity to actually have interprofessional, I don't even call it education, professional benefit to the patient. And they see that, they grow on it. And one of the things that I've observed is when you get to know each other as people, some of the biases that we have, and we all have professional jealousy and professional scope and practice issues that we want to defend. But once you get to know somebody on a one-on-one basis, and when I see the pharmacy students talking to the psychology students, talking to the DO students around a table or having lunch together, I have a really good feeling that's where it happens and it goes forward. And I think our job is to create those kind of environments where they get to know each other, not at a didactic level, but at an experiential level.
Yeah, I would agree with Dr. Veit and Dr. Ferretti. First of all, our standards require us to have professional activity, and, we haven't taken students yet, but we're planning, and certainly we'll have IPE experiences with the School of Pharmacy and the P program and the School of Nursing and even the law school. We're excited about how we can come together and, to Ken's point, with a student-run free clinic, having pharmacy students and nursing students and medical students all working together to serve the surrounding community and building those relationships, I agree, makes a tremendous difference.
Thank you all. I'd just like to say, for a final thought from my end, after listening to the three of you, I know that our students and our patients are in really good hands. So I can't thank you enough for kind of taking the time out of your busy day to have this conversation. Any final thoughts from the group? Anything?
I just want to say, Peter, good luck.
Thank you.
I think it's a new generation, and I just want to say that service, above all, is why we all go into this profession, right? And so it makes it patient-centered. I like what Dr. Veit said. Patient-centered, it's about service to other, and it's a higher calling. I think that you'll find it very rewarding on a personal basis, but on a community basis, we've all seen things happen in our communities that wouldn't have happened without our students.
Absolutely. Well, Peter, I would like to say I think we should get this group together on a regular. It's been fun.
This was like a ballet group for me. It's a lunch and learn.
The other thing I keep reminding Peter, and I had the good fortune of being geographically right next door to him, and we talk all the time. And, a couple of things is have fun, because if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you won't be the role model you want. And also put the whole thing in perspective too. And I use the term over and over again. You're going to be, as an administrator, I don't care whether you're dean, associate dean, or whatever you are, you're going to be dealt with problems that you don't even recognize now, and they're going to come across your table. And a lot of times I've learned over the years, take a deep breath before you go down any path. Time is usually on your side. Is anybody dying here today? And most of the time they're not. And sometimes I've learned is patience is one of the virtues that I think I tried to help Peter say, okay, take a deep breath and don't get really too concerned, and see what the whole problem looks like in 24 hours. And maybe that's being a family doctor too, that I'm a generalist by heart and by training. And I know that my biggest job is who has to go to the hospital and who I have time to wait it out. And I think there's a lot of similarities in the problems of being an administrator is prioritized. And most of the problems do not have to be solved in 24 hours, and they look different later. So I keep reminding my young administrators, be patient and let it run. And most importantly, have fun. Show your fun. Show the enthusiasm. Show it every day, and people follow you with your enthusiasm.
Thank you. I mean, just to sum it up, if you really think about it, whether this is going to an osteopathic physician, student, resident, lay member of the public, if you kind of are patient, you have fun, and you always put your patient first. I think they're words to live by for what you should aspire to be as a future physician or a current physician. So I'd really love to thank everybody for this great discussion. I agree we should do this again. To the group listening, if you have any feedback or episode ideas, please email poma@poma.org, and be sure to subscribe to the POMA Does podcast series on your favorite podcast platform or POMA's YouTube channel. I look forward to seeing you next time if we do this again or with any of the other podcast runners. So thank you all again.
Have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of POMA Does. Be sure to subscribe to POMA Does wherever you listen to your podcasts, and tell your friends and colleagues to tune in. Learn more about osteopathic medicine and POMA on our webpage, www.poma.org, and join the conversation on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Or email us at poma@poma.org. We'd love to hear from you. Join us next time for another edition of POMA Does.